Host Melissa Rosenblum is one of only a few women certified by the Supreme Court of New Jersey as a criminal trial attorney. When you add kids, a booming law business, and a little black book full of subject matter experts, you've got the Mighty Merp podcast. And part 2 in this series.
Any interesting stories working for Governor Brendan Byrne or Governor Thomas Keene? Any that you can share?
Dan Weissman, who was probably one of the better reporters, he worked for the Star-Ledger in Newark. He always used to come up to me and point to my head and say, "You got a Pulitzer Prize winning book up there." And I said, "Yeah, Dan, and when I die, it's going to die with me."
So the answer is no good stories.
No good stories.
So let me ask you.
I will tell you one story.
Okay, good.
And these are the kinds of things that happen, and it's nothing bad, but I had been transferred to the executive protection maybe a couple of months, and Brendan Byrne ran for re-election and won. So we're going up to, he had just gotten sworn in Trenton at the War Memorial Building. And we're now driving up to the Meadowlands where he was going to have his inaugural ball. We were going to go to the hotel. It was snowing like crazy, and we're on the turnpike. Somebody had given him a portable television so he could watch his inaugural speech. And he has the antenna sticking out of the window of the Lincoln Continental that we were driving. So we're driving up the turnpike in a big motorcade. And again, snowing like crazy. And thinking I was moving my seat back, I hit the button. And what I did was I closed the window that the antenna was, and the screen went blank. And he grabbed the antenna and threw it against the window. And I'm thinking, man, can I drive this car from under the seat? I want to hide. I want someplace to hide. And I kept telling him, I'm sorry. He finally said, "Look, relax. And his wife is in the back seat. She's laughing because, she's watching all this. And it was embarrassing. But after years later, we would mention that, and he would joke about it. So it was funny.
And how old were you at the time?
28 maybe.
You were a baby.
I was a baby, yeah, 28.
So what do you think makes an effective leader?
I think some leaders are born and some leaders are made. And I think an effective leader, first of all, is somebody who understands people, understands how to deal with people, cares about people, because that's important. People know if you don't care about them. But you have to set a good example. You have to be a model for them, because that's something else that they realize too. And because I was always in jobs where you wear a uniform, you're always exposed to leadership. So you get to see people who are in leadership positions, and you focus on things that they do good, and you focus on things that they do bad.
So you said some people are born to be leaders. So one of my questions was, do you think someone can learn to be a leader?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think most people learn to be leaders. I think there are very few people who are born leaders, but I think by and large, if you pay attention to what you see and what you observe and the people around you, and you study leadership, you read books, I think that's also how you become a leader.
So do you think there's one way to be an effective leader? Or do you think there's multiple ways or different styles?
There's different styles, and I think it depends on the situation that you're involved in. Clearly a Marine major is not going to be the same kind of leader that somebody that works for IBM is. but I think the basic traits are the same. Set a good example, care about people, be able to communicate. I've seen leaders who are terrible communicators, and that's not good. They're not effective when they do that.
Yeah, you would think that if you can't communicate, you can't lead.
Yeah.
Whether it's communicating the message or the goal or what you want to achieve.
Yeah, and I've worked for people that way, and they end up they end up in situations where are not good. Let's put it that way.
Do you have a specific leadership style? I mean, you've talked about so I think for you, what I'm understanding is maybe I'm going to work really hard. People are going to see that I'm a hard worker, but are you a yeller? Are you do you work on reaction, or do you like to kind of see the whole situation to figure out the best way to proceed? I mean, what do you think your leadership style is, or have you read a leadership book that you thought, I want to embrace that?
Well, I've read a lot of them, but I think the style is it depends on the situation. You have to know the people that you're dealing with that work for you, because they're not all the same. Some are very weak, some are very strong, and you deal with them differently. Somebody who needs a lot of help, you spend a lot of time with them. You tell them what they do wrong. And at the end of the day, and I always remember this, at the end of the day, if somebody screws up really bad, at the end of the day, you pat them on the shoulder and say, look, tomorrow's going to be a better day. You know what you did wrong. And I think you don't learn by your successes, you learn by the mistakes that you make.
Oh, yeah.
So,
the whole idea of fail, is first attempt in, I forget what the L is. First attempt in learning is what a fail is, And I think most people would say that their greatest lessons were because of a failure and not because of an accomplishment.
Yeah.
The idea of knowing that each individual person that you're leading is going to need you to lead differently.
Yeah.
It's I always think that, especially in the military, when I think of a leader, and I wasn't in the military, so I think of, the caricature of someone yelling at somebody else, and obviously there are a lot of people that do not work well getting yelled at. It's not the right way to lead them. It might be the right way to lead someone, but not everyone.
Yeah. I mean, being overly forceful that's not good. That's not good. Like somebody used to say, there's a time and place for assault and battery, and you can't deal with every situation the same way. You have to know what's right and what's wrong. And again, I think, but the key is knowing the individual that you're dealing with.
So what is the best leadership advice you ever received, whether it was through someone telling you directly or whether you heard it and you thought that is the best leadership advice I've ever heard?
Actually, there's a lot of them, but one that I remember is actually from Tom Kane, and we were talking about when he was putting his cabinet together. And when you're in the car together, I mean, there's a group that travels with the governor every day, a group of troopers, but one guy drives the car. And when I was in the car with him one day, we were talking about putting his cabinet together, and he said, the best thing to do is you pick good people that are going to do the job. You let them do the job. You tell them what you want done, and let them figure out how to get it done. And I think that's basically true in any situation.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
If you're going to pick someone to lead something or to work with you, you have to trust them to do it.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to micromanage, and that's a mistake that a lot of, no, I shouldn't say a lot, but some people make. They'll pick people to do a job, and then they stay over their shoulder and they want to, well, you got to do it this way, do it this way. No, that's not how. First of all, that's not how you learn to do things, by somebody telling you all the time. So
We hope you've enjoyed this episode. Stay tuned. There is more to come. Mighty Merp is available on iTunes, Spotify, and all your favorite apps and players. But the best way to experience the show is to visit mightymerp.com. That's mightymerp.com. Mighty Merp is a production of the Law Office of Melissa Rosenblum and the Niche Podcast Network.